What's up, guys? Andy here from OrthoSport HQ. I have Dan with me today. We're going to take him through 4 of the Phase 1 TPI assessment movement screens. Everything's going to be addressed of setup and how he can improve that going into his golf swing. So I'm going to have Dan go into just his iron posture. And what I'm going to have Dan do is I'm going to have him do this, 2 to 3 times, coming in and out of that setup position. And what I'm looking for is what his spine and his pelvic alignment looks like from down the line. And right off the bat, we can kind of see that Dan has this more accentuated, what we call S posture. And a lot of that is due to his pelvis being stuck in this anteriorly rotated position. So the butt is really stuck out. So what we're going to do next is going back into the golf posture. I'm going to try to have Dan be able to manipulate and control his pelvis both anteriorly and posteriorly, trying to tilt it back and forth. We're going to do 2 attempts each direction. And then after 2 is completed, we're going to go back to a neutral position. Now, because Dan is stuck in this S posture, he has way little movement trying to stick his butt back. And then when he tries to posteriorly rotate his pelvis, it's a little shaky. We call that a little shake and bake. So he's stuck in this tightened position. He can posteriorly rotate really well, but it's not as fluid as what I would like. And because at address he's really tight at his lumbar spine, has a lot of density running along his spine as well. When we go into phase 2, we're going to be able to see what his swing characteristics are going to typically look like. But more often than not, my biggest complaint, and we'll have to address this a little bit more in depth, is getting him back to neutral with his pelvis. So phase 3 for this is going back into his iron posture once more. What we really want to look at is how much he can disassociate his lower body from his upper body. Biggest thing for this, and I see this with a lot of golfers, is they're just unable to do that. And a lot of that is due to poor motor control as well. But if their sequencing isn't good in the golf swing, I'll typically look at to see if they can disassociate from top and bottom. So what we're going to start with, we're going to try and isolate the lower body first. So I want Dan to keep his sternum very still, very quiet. And I want him to rotate his lower body, his hips and his knees can have some movement. 2 times to the right and 2 times to the left. And what I'm looking for is there any movement at all in this upper body? And that can just be sternum deviating right and left. Is he trying to hinge a little bit more? Now, based on what he was showing, he tends to have a little bit more deviation with the sternum right and left. But he also, when he starts to do this, he wants to hinge way lower to the ground. His chest goes down. Yep. Let's do another. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and stabilize Dan's upper body. We're going to keep it nice and tight. I want him to do 2 more to the right and left. Good. Good. And then back up. So for that, obviously I didn't give Dan any cues there, but what he's still displaying is a little bit of upper body movement, both deviating right and left and hinging a touch more. He gets that a little bit more as he tries to rotate left than he does right. And what that tells me is a lot of this is a mobility problem from his lower spine. If he's able to keep his upper body way more quiet once I stabilize, that's telling me that He has a little bit of lack of stability in his thoracic spine that we would have to address, but he's not displaying that at all. So most of his issues is lack of mobility at his lumbar and his hip line. So now we're going to isolate upper body. We'll go back into his iron posture. So now we want to keep the belt buckle as still as possible. Good. Let's do another one to the right, and then we'll do 2 to the left. Now, what you can kind of see is this right knee, as he was rotating to the left, his right knee is displaying a little bit of some valgus stress. So he's not able to quiet that as much as I would like. He had nothing going on when he was rotating to the right. His typical presentation, a lot more dysfunction, is going anything to his lead side, his left side. So now what we're going to do, we'll go back into his iron posture. I'm going to stabilize his lower half. And we're going to do 2 more to the right and 2 more to the left. Good. Let's go to your left. Good. Completely different from his lower body. So he's able to fully isolate his lower half as soon as I stabilize his pelvis. So that's no longer a mobility problem. That's strictly stability from his core and his lumbar spine that we kind of need to address a little bit more.